There's a creature in the woods. It's been here before. By Birchtreeboi. So, a little background info before I get into the story. My name is Troy. I own a sizable 3-floor cabin in the mountains of Colorado, surrounded by trees and animals. It takes a good 5 hours to get to my cabin, and you have to go through 3 miles of dangerous winding roads. Now, off to my story. I arrived at my cabin around 5:30 p.m. and I made some dinner, a bacon burger. I took my dog Reno outside and then checked the game cameras before going to bed. They're technically security cameras, but I use them for seeing the wildlife. I woke up at about 8 o'clock and let Reno outside to go to the bathroom. After that, I fed him and had breakfast myself. I went to my couch and watched a little TV after that. Then I went outside to go for a hike. The sky was bright and warm and it had very few clouds. Reno was excited to get out of the house and to run around finally. He's a Greyhound Vizsla mix, and they are very athletic dogs, so Reno was a big fan of hikes. I walked into the heavily forest trail about a mile and then found a fork in the road. I went left as I usually do, and I finished the hike. When I got back to the cabin, I made some lunch and gave a bit of deli meat to Reno. I got a chair and sat outside on the balcony for a good hour, taking in the beauty of the woods surrounding me. The vanilla scent from the pine trees brought a smile to my face. This is one of the most secluded homes in the Colorado wilderness, and that's what makes it so beautiful. Fast forward a couple of hours and I'm having dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, when I remembered what I saw coming up here. There was a deer skeleton that had been picked clean in the middle of the road. I paid it no mind and just continued down the road to my home. Now I decided to go to bed. I woke up about 7:30 with a skull-splitting headache, and I went to my bathroom to get a pain reliever. I've had a long history of headaches ever since I was young, and the consistency of them had dulled the pain I used to feel. However, this headache was like none before. I was practically screaming for 10 minutes until the pain left. My dog was whining at me to take him for a walk, which I was going to do. I opened the blinds and was surprised to see snow on the ground. It was the middle of May. There shouldn't be snow, I thought to myself. "Ready, Reno?" I said. He jumped up and was excited to go and play in the snow. We were going on the trail and were about to go left on the fork, but we saw something in the right side. There was a big lump of red and white. We were going over to it, and then I realized a terrible smell, the smell of a decaying corpse. We ran up to it and saw a mangled mess of animal limbs, bones, muscles, gore. Reno picked up a bone and jumped around gleefully while I didn't know what was even going on. I made an assumption that there was a pack of coyotes and that this wasn't very serious. We turned around and headed for home. Reno hopped around with a bone in his mouth, and I had to keep a fast pace just to keep up with him. Afterward, I went fishing, caught 2 golden trout and brought them back home to cook. I headed back to the cabin, and it was already getting dark and cold. I got back home and went into the kitchen, where I filleted and seasoned the trout before wrapping them in foil to cook them. I went outside to start the fire when I saw large human footprints. It was strange, but I chalked it up to my own prints and I started cooking my fish. While preparing and staring at the stars, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I whipped my head around instantly to see a man staring at the sky with skin devoid of any pigmentation, stretched tightly over the bone. As though there was barely enough to cover his frame, he looked about 10 feet tall and was very lanky. His back was hunched over, and his vertebrae were practically splitting his skin apart. His legs were long, and he was extremely skinny. His arms were basically touching the ground, and he was naked. At the end of those arms stretched slender hands, large fingers with bony knuckles, and claws the size of small forks. He had a bulbous oval-shaped head with dark, sunken eye holes, and a gaping black void of a mouth with parts of skin attaching his jaw to his skull. He was an inhuman abomination covered in blood, and then he broke his glare at the sky and looked right at me. He let out a deafening roar and sprinted into the forest at extreme speed. I had no idea what to think or do. I was just completely terrified. I ran back to the cabin without looking back. As I ran into the house, Reno was jumping around excitedly, but I paid it no mind. My first thought was cameras. I ran into my camera room and I scrolled through all 15 of my cameras, and what I found left me mortified.